For decades, one name was basically synonymous with professional wrestling. But now, a new challenger, backed by billions, has stepped into the ring, and the whole game has been changed by the new giants of media. So yeah, let's get into this new war for wrestling supremacy.
So, here's the big question we're tackling today. In this totally new landscape of 2026, where streaming platforms are the main event, who is actually winning the fight for the future? WWE or AEW?
To even start to answer that, we first have to get our heads around the new reality. See, it's not about one king and a bunch of smaller territories anymore. We are officially living in the age of a professional wrestling duopoly. In one corner, you've got the industry king, WWE, the publicly traded monster that everyone has known for, well, forever. And in the other corner, you have all elite wrestling. You know, AEW, the ambitious, privately owned challenger that's really, and I mean really, become a legitimate alternative. But you know, this war isn't just being fought on Wall Street or in corporate boardrooms. No way. The real battle is for the fans, for you and me. And that all starts with what happens inside the ring. And believe me, these two companies could not be more different in how they approach their product. And this is where you can really see how different their DNA is. WWE is a master of these self-contained story arcs, kind of like a weekly TV show where the plot is everything. The characters are there to serve the story, which often gives us those classic good guy versus bad guy tales. AEW, though, they're playing the long game. It's all about character arcs. The stories are driven by the wrestlers' motivations and flaws, which leads to these really complex, morally gray narratives that unfold over years. You know, this quote from Pro Wrestling Musings just hits the nail on the head. To get AEW, you have to get invested in a character's journey, their motivations. But with WWE, you can just jump in and follow the immediate conflict. Both work. They're just completely different ways of telling a story. And that difference in philosophy, it spills right over into the in-ring action. WWE is all about creating these big, cinematic moments. The matches are paced more methodically, the camera work is super slick with lots of dramatic close-ups, and wrestlers kind of have to fit into a defined house style. AEW, on the other hand, it's been called all gas and bombs. It's faster, it's more athletic, and the production has this grittier feel, using wider shots so you don't miss any of the crazy action. It's truly a buffet of wrestling styles all on one menu. So we've talked about the creative side, but that's only half the picture. To understand the real war, you've got to follow the money. Because behind the scenes, these companies are fueled by two very different and very, very powerful business engines. Okay, let's break down who's actually calling the shots. WWE is now part of TKO Group Holdings. That's a publicly traded company, majority owned by Endeavor. Yep, the same people who own the UFC. So they have shareholders to answer to. AEW is the total opposite. It's a private company owned by the billionaire Khan family, but with a key partner in Warner Bros. Discovery, who own a nice little chunk of the business. On the scale we're talking about with WWE is just, well, it's staggering. In 2024, its parent company, TKO, pulled in a reported revenue of over $2.8 billion. That's the kind of financial firepower you get when you're a global institution. But don't think for a second that being privately owned means AEW is small time. As of early 2026, the company has an estimated market value of a whopping $2 billion. That makes them a major player, a legit top-tier sports property on the world stage. And this is where things get really, really interesting. WWE is still the undisputed financial king, no doubt, but there's a fascinating trend starting to emerge. Recently, we've seen attendance for WWE's weekly shows dip a little bit here and there. Meanwhile, AEW looks to be on a slow and steady climb. It's a small detail, but it could be a huge indicator of where fan engagement is headed. Okay, this all brings us to the single most important battleground in this whole thing, the new world of media rights. The massive shift from old-school cable to streaming has completely torn up the rulebook. And WWE has played this new game like a grand master. They've built a media empire by slicing up their content and selling it to the highest bidders. You've got Monday Night Raw moving to Netflix. The big events like WrestleMania, those are on ESPN's streaming service. And SmackDown is staying on traditional TV with USA Network. When you add it all up, we're talking about almost $1.2 billion a year. But hang on, let's just stop and think about that Netflix deal for a second.
We're talking about a 10-year deal to put Raw on the biggest streaming service in the world, and it's worth $5 billion. This is an absolute game changer. It took WWE's flagship show off regular TV for the first time in over 30 years and put it in front of 260 million subscribers worldwide. Wow.
Now, AEW's strategy is different, but it's just as smart. They've gone all in with their media partner, Warner Bros. Discovery. So their weekly shows air on cable, but they also stream live at the same time on Max. And here's the kicker. Their pay-per-views and their entire library are also on Max. It creates this one-stop shop for any AEW fan.
So after all these massive changes, new owners, mind-blowing media deals, completely different creative philosophies, where does this all leave the wrestling industry? What does this new, stable war actually mean for everyone?
Well, it means we have a real wrestling duopoly. For the first time in more than 20 years, we have two global, financially rock-solid, major league companies, and they're both backed by absolute giants in media. This isn't a fight for survival anymore, not by a long shot. So let's just wrap this all up. What's the state of play in 2026? Well, for one, both WWE and AEW are set for years to come. That security has kicked off an insane talent war, so it's a very good time to be a top free agent. For us fans, it's amazing. We have two very different, very high-quality products to choose from. And it's official, streaming is now the one and only home of pro wrestling. The only real wild card? There are whispers of a potential merger between Netflix and Warner Bros. Discovery, which would put both WWE and AEW under the same corporate umbrella. Now that would change everything all over again.
And that really leaves us with one final big question. With both of these companies locked into these massive multi-billion-dollar deals, the threat of one of them going out of business is basically gone. So the question isn't who will survive anymore. The real question is, in this brand new era, who will truly reign supreme?